Hello everyone who is also in a deep blue funk but is trying to just grin and laugh their way through it. That's depressing, I apologize. I am BorderWise and welcome back to From the Depths. Please enjoy this ship sailing along shooting things. So, in keeping with the spirit of how I'm going at the moment, which is slightly burned out and From the Depths and not actually wanting to build anything in it at the moment, I wanted to have a little bit of fun, a little bit of a rant, a little bit of discussion, because discussions in this game are fun. In case you're wondering, yes, we are fighting marauders, because marauders are the best thing to fight. It is the rules. I didn't make them up, I just follow them. So, there's actually a reason we have the good old icicle on screen right now, because the entire Pale Alloy fleet, which I semi-famously played through the Steel Sovereign's custom campaign was based on a silly idea I had. The silly idea being the binary armor material combination. Basically, you pick any two structural materials in From the Depths and you just use those two to build your craft. Now, the whole idea was kind of experimental to kind of like test to see which material combinations work best. Spoiler alert, it's already pretty well established in the FDD community which material combinations work best, because, well, people have done the math on it. It's just like it's reasonably straightforward. That being said, everyone has a slightly different opinion on it, and armor in From the Depths is a very contentious topic, if nothing else because no one wants to admit that the armor scheme they spent hundreds of hours analyzing and building an entire big battleship out of might not work very well. So, basically, the Pale Fleet alloy, well, the Pale Fleet was basically made out of alloy and wood. So if you look here, it has the rather more an aesthetic choice than anything else. The slopes are alloy, and the beams are wood. And that's, well, pretty straightforward, honestly. That's the whole gist. And we'll get into why that's actually a terrible combination in a hot second. For now, we're going to look at a bunch of hulls I made, and to give you kind of an idea of how certain material combinations behave when combined together. And I will be roasting them, and probably also myself a little bit, talking about like which combinations work and which ones do not. Spoiler alert, some of them work better than others. So, enough of this senseless violence. A very amusing violence, but senseless nonetheless. We're going to hop into... where are we? So, we're going to go here. Where did I put it? Where did I put it? I put it in test vehicles. Because this was just supposed to be a testy test, but I call this binary armor because it's basically picking just two. So to start off with, we're going to go for the Le Cheapo. So, wood and stone. This is a good combination, if only because both of these things are damn cheap. And for the record, the armor scheme for like all of these things is basically the same. The principle is the stronger material is the slopes and the air gap filler, and the weaker material is like the bulk of the craft, the 4-meter beam, so to speak. So let us split this in half so you can see what I'm talking about. Basically, all of them are like this. Cut above that, and here we go. So here is what the armor scheme of this thing is. Feel free to roast me in the comments for this particular armor scheme. I don't know why I like this. I think it's just, like, visually satisfying more than anything else, but it seems to do kind of the trick. It's not terrible. It is almost certainly not best. Like, beam slopes for the win, as the armor nerds in the community are pretty fond of saying. Although, you can actually argue about that a little bit, because it's to do with kinetic damage versus thump and plasma and all. Anyway, this is basically all these hulls have this kind of structure that I'm about to show you. The beams are the cheap thing, and the air gap filler and the slopes is the slightly more expensive thing. That's it. That's the whole premise. So, with that out of the way, we're going to turn that off. Hallelujah. And let's talk about wood and stone. Wood is amazing material in From the Depths up to a point, because it is cheap, it is floaty, it is EMP resistant, it is also highly flammable. Stone is also kind of cheap. It is in fact the second cheapest thing. It is literally twice as expensive as wood, so 4-meter beam right there is 4 materials, and a 4-meter beam for stone is 8 materials, but that is a lot cheaper than, say, alloy, for instance. So if you make something principally out of wood and stone, it's going to be damn cheap, but the two strengths of this thing, well, basically stone makes up for the biggest weakness of wood, well, apart from the fact that it's basically cardboard in this game, is that it's flammability, because wood is the most flammable block in From the Depths, or at least the most flammable structural block. Might be the most flammable thing overall, nope, actually rubber is more flammable. Interesting. Actually, interesting, yeah, rubber is more flammable, but it has more fire resistance. That's weird. But in any case, so wood goes poof and when it's hit with fire, but stone is quite literally the most flame-resistant block in the game. It has 0 flammability, gives no fuel back to the flame, fire resistance of 50, heavy armor has greater fire resistance, but also it does give fuel back to the thing, and effectively makes the fire more intense. So once heavy armor starts going, like, it's hard to set heavy armor on fire. You need a big flame for that. A lot of fire damage, but once it's going, yish, things melt. Melting the pyre is actually very funny. But yeah, so this is a good combination, I'd say. It's just not something you should, you shouldn't expect this to outperform something with, I don't know, more expensive materials in it. Like, if people are being sensible with their metal and their alloy and their heavy armor, something made just out of wood and stone, you're only gonna kind of beat that, all other things being equal, by basically spamming a cheap, nasty thing, so to speak. Also, like, please note that this is canoe-shaped. I don't know why that just occurred to me, but it just did. Also, rubber-proofing for the win. That is just a unconscious habit I have now, and good thing for that. So, let's move on to the next thing, which is wood and metal. This is probably one of the best armor combinations in the game. It's just not so good the way I've done it just now. The actual smart way to do wood and metal is to have alternating layers of it with metal on the outside. Reason being, explosions. Well, I can actually show off right now. So let's have just a minor explosion, and let's go 15 meter radius. So 5,000 explosive damage is not much, by the way. So over here on the metal slopes, kablooey, that did 5.8 thousand damage. Move over to the wood, that did 17, but almost 18,000 damage. So that's why you put metal on the outside, people. You don't want to do what I've done here. What I've done here is basically, A, partially an aesthetic choice, like I said. It's like the Icicle kind of ran like that. And B, it is kind of a cheap, nasty, like, cost reduction. Not a very sensible one, I do have to say. I was having a theme here. But anyway, so wood and metal is an absolutely wonderful armor combination, because they complement each other very well. Wood is cheap, and it floats, and metal is just tough. It is the second toughest structural material after heavy armor, while being 5 times cheaper. So, metal is just good. Metal is like the default material for anything that you expect to get shot at, for very good reason. That is its basically only job. It is affordable and good armor. That's what it does, and that's all really you can, that's the whole job of metal. It is the default armor option. So yeah, by the way, this particular armor scheme I don't think would actually work very well, actually, simply because what would happen is the 2 layers of wood would get blown off, and then these 2 layers of poles don't have armor stacking, and there is a chance that heat could go straight through it, and hitting hitting these poles once the wood layer is blown off would just have very high AP. Spalling go and shred this wood in a citadel. So wood and metal is a damn good combination, but just not the way I've done it right here. Probably a more sensible version of this would be probably a metal layer on the outside there, and then we would have something like this, and we'd have... what would we have here? We'd probably have metal beam slopes like this if we were absolutely sure that there was going to be a problem there. Because that way, spalling does basically nothing here, and we could probably add in a second layer right there, maybe a double layer there, something like that. But yeah, that's basically it with wood and metal. It's just good. They work together very well. These materials complement each other very, very well. Honestly, that should be your default. Unless you're making something, unless you're making a dedicated flying brick, that wood and metal is just like a very good default, I feel. Now, getting on to wood and alloy. And this is what the entire Pale Fleet is made of. And this is probably the thing I have most direct experience with in terms of an armor combination, or at least a binary armor combination. Apart from wood and metal, I actually played off-camera in adventure mode, and I gotta say, it worked a damn treat. It's just 2 layers of, like, material outside metal, inside wood, works surprisingly well until you start getting heavy artillery fired at you. Anyway, wood and alloy, I do not actually recommend this, and I can say that with absolute confidence because I played through, well, not one, but like 2 entire campaigns with this. Like, I played through Steel Sovereigns, and I did a playtest of my own custom campaign under construction, Platono. It does kind of work. You can say that wood compensates for alloy's priciness for what it does, because that is the problem with alloy. Alloy is good stuff. It really, really is. It is reasonably durable. It is very, very light. That is absolutely its best feature. It is somewhat fire resistant, although it is somewhat flammable. It is more EMP resistant than metal and definitely heavy armor, but it does a whole bunch of things well, but still, when it comes to just flat armor, it is quite expensive for what it does, because it costs the same as metal, but is weaker in terms of health and armor. Like, you wouldn't think, like, a base of, like, 50 health and 5 armor would make a difference, but really. So, look in there, 1440 health for the 4-meter beam, and 1680 health for the 4-meter metal beam. That's a fair amount. It's over 200 HP, and that armor stacking, it just kind of stacks up over time, especially against explosives. So, basically, the main problem with this is that wood and alloy kind of overlap too much in the things they're kind of good at, because both of them are floaty. That's the thing. Really all you're doing, and people have told me this, like, many times in the comment section concerning the Pale Fleet and what it's gotten up to, is that if you're gonna use, if you're going to use wood and alloy, you might as well be using metal instead, because the wood takes care of the flotation. If you are using alloy and wood, you've got both. You've got 2 of the most floaty block types, and, well, it's incredibly floaty, I guess, so if you want to have a lot of very heavy weaponry on it, that's great. You can have a glass cannon, which is effectively how I had to play using this material type, because goodness knows this is not tanky. This is not tanky at all. It is, like, very squishy. And I found that out the hard way. Like, I will post a link to my video roasting my own Pale Fleet failures, because it turns out large craft you should not build with just wood and alloy. That is a very bad idea, because a glass cannon should be hard to hit. Evasion is its #1 defense, so to speak. That and vaporizing the enemy before it even points a finger at you. If it's big and squishy, it's like, well, it's like a big sponge. It gets hit by everything and destroyed. And that's bad. So I don't really recommend this one. Like, speaking as someone who has actually tried it, you're better off using wood and metal, or one of the later combinations, actually. But basically, wood and metal is, like, best default, I would say. So, moving right along, and wood and heavy armor is worse. So, fun story time about wood and heavy armor. Back in the very early days of planning Platono, the Hawa Confederation was supposed to be like this, because I thought it would be like, you know, a nice goofy thing to do, is just, have a faction that's their whole gimmick is like they use the cheapest and weakest structural material combined with the strongest and most expensive. That has not stood the test of time, because that does not actually work very well, as it turns out. This is a horrible, horrible combination, basically because the strengths and weaknesses of wood and heavy armor effectively cancel each other out if you try and use both of them as, like, a main structural block, so to speak. So, a reminder, all of these, like, little hulls here are basically the same, just the material has changed. So what I've done here is very, very inadvisable, because this is actually a lot of heavy armor, and and it doesn't have nearly enough buoyancy for it. So this is kind of worst of both worlds. The outside is very, very squishy and will get torn away immediately if this thing is fighting anything remotely the same cost as it. And again, it's like the metal, but worse. Once this is blown off, and any kind of heat or HES shell gets in here, it's gonna just bypass these blocks completely, because poles are okay air block filler, remember? But not great. Incidentally, yeah, no, this pole trick would not work well with this particular armor combination at all. So, and an inner citadel of wood is silly. Don't do this. These hulls are example more than anything else. But yeah, so the cheapness of wood is cancelled out by heavy armor being really damn expensive, and the buoyancy of wood is cancelled out by heavy armor being, like, well, heavy. So that's not a very good idea, not at all. And and it goes back the other way. The durability of heavy armor is effectively cancelled out by the fact that it's frickin' wood. So even wood that is being backed by heavy armor, it's just so we can all see, the max structural armor boost is 12, which sounds great because that gets wood up to like 20 armor, which is pretty good, except it's only half that of metal. So if you're going to do that, you might as well just have metal on the outside backed by wood, and you actually have, like, more armor. Like, twice as much armor on the outside. So wood and heavy armor is bloody terrible. And there's the flammability problem, because, like, wood is very flammable. And, like, admittedly, the fires that are fueled by wood don't have very high intensity. They only have an intensity of 10. But once the fire gets going, and once it starts melting the heavy armor, it's going to have very high intensity because of the fire resistance of heavy armor. It's a bit of a problem. So, yeah, this is a terrible combination, and that is why the Hawa Confederation, to this day, does not use heavy armor. They are all in on the wood glass cannoniness, and they're actually more formidable and scary for that, because their craft are just so damn cheap for the amount of firepower they put out. Incidentally, on a side tangent, while you're looking at the merry wooden submarine here, Hawa literally stands for Heavy Armor Wood Armor. So, if you're ever stuck on your world building project, here's a bit of free advice for you. The trick I use is you make an acronym out of, like, a description of the thing, and then you add vowels until it sounds like a word. So, if, for instance, I'm going to write this down, because otherwise I'm going to confuse. This is, I'm going to describe this thing. I'm going to give this thing a name. It is Sinky Stupid Boat. So, Sinky, so that is S-I, so leave the vowel in there. Sinky Stupid, S-T-U, Boat, B. So this is Sistub. So spelt like this. This is now Stub. That is its name. I just came up with a name for this thing. Easy peasy. So, you're welcome, I guess. If nothing else, you learned how to do that. Moving right along. Whee! Alright, so now we're out of the wood area. Now we get on to other things. And this one, stone and alloy, I'm probably going to be a little bit outspoken on, because I think this works together quite well. I am actually going to drop the brightness of this down so we can actually look through it. That is one of the downsides of stone, is that it's kind of bright to look at. Right, so, I think this actually is a pretty good armor combination. And feel free to disagree with me, and feel free to explain your disagreement, because I am genuinely interested to hear it. But hear me out for now. So, stone is good because it is cheap hit points, it is the most fire-resistant thing overall, and it's just, it's got better armor than wood. Admittedly, that's not very difficult. Alloy is very good because it is decently tough, and it is very floaty, and it's just got, like, it's also fairly fire-resistant, but it is also flammable. So, there. I think this works together very well because they complement each other in a very nice way. In a similar way that wood and stone does, except this is the more pricey version. You'll notice this thing is sitting up in the water, like, pretty well. Not amazingly well, because it's mostly stone. But the cheapness of stone helps counteract alloy's inherent expensiveness. And alloy, just being nice and floaty, helps reduce the weight of the whole thing, and this, I think, is just a good combination, and I say that because I have actually made like, you know, functional things out of this, like complete craft. Admittedly just for fun, because I keep procrastinating things. So where is it? It's this thing. So some of you might remember this thing from the block clusters video I did not too long ago. This thing is mostly made out of stone and alloy. In fact, it's got even weaker armor than the hull over there. It's just like stone and alloy poles in there as air gap filler, and a double layer of stone around the midsection just to stop it dying horribly. And this thing works quite well, admittedly, because it is quite fast. And yeah, it's just... it is affordable, it's floaty, it's light, it's maneuverable as a result of it being light, and, like, fairly cheap. It's got a wooden superstructure, even. Just because, you know, you gotta... uh-oh. No, don't do it! Don't do it! You have so much to live for! How did you do that? Okay, that was very silly. Also, hang on a minute. What even hit there? Oh, that's what hit there. The hydrofoils went bonk. Whoops. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. Do let me know if you think I am full of nonsense. I might be full of nonsense. Alright, so then we need to go back. We need to go back to the future. We need to go back to the future. Test. I really need to put a space in that. Every time I look at that folder name, it kind of drives me nuts. Alright, so let's go. Make sure we're in the correct place. Stone and metal. This is okay, I would say. This is an okay combination. This is basically if you want something tough, and you're not worried about it being floating. So this is... if you're not going to use buoyant materials to make your craft, it's probably because, ironically, you're going to make it fly. Probably with custom jets. You will notice this thing is sinking. However, the great thing about stone and metal is that, I haven't mentioned this before, they have almost neutral buoyancy. So... -7 is really not that much, so even if I put an air pump in this admittedly not super spacious central compartment, whoop, suddenly we are rising. We are rising from the depths. Or wait, no we're not. Are we? What are we doing? Are we rising? I can't even tell. Anyway, if I put more blocks in here, it'll probably rise a little bit. Let's put blocks here and here. Here and here. You rising or what? There we go. Now that we've put air pumps in, this is rising. Of course, bear in mind, air pumps have their drawbacks. If your boat becomes a holy boat, it goes to church, it's gonna sink, and air pumps can cause a lot of lag. But, so this is okay. It's basically if you want to make a pure metal hull but a little bit cheaper, so you swap out some blocks to stone just to reduce the overall cost of the thing. But stone and metal are kind of similar, except stone is like the cheaper, more EMP resistant version of metal. So this is... I'd say this is okay. Like wood, actually, you would want to make the exterior skin of this metal, simply because that would be more explosion-proof. Stone only has 16 armor, which is less than half of metal, so it is going to get blown up a fair bit. So we can demonstrate that right now. How's our thing? 5,015. So let's go here. Kablooey. That is roughly 5.31k explosive damage. That did basically nothing, but on stone, it did almost twice that. So yeah, it is like... stone is not as kablooey resistant as metal, so exterior for explosion proofing should probably be the stronger material. So I'm not sure why I build hulls like this. I don't know why. It just kind of makes my brain happy for some reason. There's just something about it, and it's not an artistic thing. It's just just to have the slopes be one material and the beams be another. I think I might have a problem. That's worse than the canoe problem, actually. But yeah, like, there's not much to say about stone and metal. It's just like pure metal hull, but cheaper and more EMP resistant, and that's basically the trick. So, moving right along, now we get to stone heavy armor. This sucks. And I say this because there's a faction which is actually made mostly out of this, technically. So the Stone Light presence in the custom campaign, Platono, Their whole shtick is that the exterior is either stone or heavy armor, which really, and this is a bit of free advice for anyone who wants to build for Stone Knight, use stone. It's cheap. It's cheap and it's okay, and you can make the Citadel as heavy armor as you want. Don't go nuts with exterior heavy armor like ever. It's never really worth it. Like, unless you're under severe volume constraints for some reason, but even then, I would probably, like, you know, don't do that. So yeah, this is dumb, because the thing doesn't float, and if you're gonna make a flying thing, like a flying brick, yeah, this doesn't do it, Chief. This is a little bit like the same problem with using wood in heavy armor, is that the cheapness of the stone doesn't really offset how expensive heavy armor is. And it is better than just wood and heavy armor, because the aforementioned stone is very fire resistant, and that is enough to offset this. Yeah, so, like, honestly, if you're going to combine stone and heavy armor, it should be mostly stone, and then the Citadel is just heavy armor, which is kind of how you're supposed to use heavy armor anyway. It is the last line of defense, and I'm quite fond of saying this. Heavy armor is very strong, but it is also so expensive that you actually don't want it to be shot at as much as possible. It is literally the last line of defense, unless you're the pyre, in which case, delicious potato wedges, yum yum yum. So yeah, this is better than wood and heavy armor, but not by much, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, there are much better combinations, and, like, heavy armor in general does not play well when you use it as a main structural component, unless you are trying to make an extremely tanky flying brick, which I personally don't recommend, because you can undercost things that do that, like, fairly easily. Unless you're doing adventure mode, in which case you really only have the one vehicle and you better make it survivable somehow. I don't know, I need to play adventure mode more to really be quotable on it. Alright, so now moving on to the alloy things we missed. There is a Venn diagram here. Not a Venn diagram, what's the word? I don't know. Alloy in heavy armor. This also sucks. So you would think that alloy in heavy armor would be a match made in heaven, because alloy is light enough and floaty enough to offset how not light and not floaty heavy armor is. Well, not in this ratio, that's for sure. It takes about 8 alloy blocks to float 1 block of heavy armor, and I can actually demonstrate that right now. So if we go, we have 1 heavy armor beam here, and you will notice that we are sinking. We're not sinking. Are we going to catch up to that fellow over there? Are we thinking? I don't know. So, looking at the altitude meter in the bottom there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, it doesn't take. Hold on, it takes how much? Slowing down. Are you still? Ooh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope, 6. There we go. It takes, alright, it takes, what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Interesting. Well, it takes about 6 alloy beams to float 1 meter heavy armor, so this is expensive as balls. So, I remember way back in the day, those of you who remember Brenzo, I hope he's doing well, actually, did a whole thing about, like, retrofitting the Ragnarök, Robus's famous battleship, and the midsection armor is actually exactly this. It is a layer of heavy armor with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I believe actually on the retrofitted Ragnarök, the Ragnarök, sorry, let's you got to say it proper Scandinavian. I don't know what accent I just said. Ragnarök. I believe it was 8 meters on the Ragnarök, not 6, but this is expensive armor. You don't want to plaster this all over your ship. That's probably a bad idea, but hey, it's tanky and floaty, and actually if you do want to just free float a layer of heavy armor, alloy is basically the only thing that can really do that. So, just for comparison, the amount of wood it takes to float heavy armor is a lot more. So if we do this, that's 6 layers of wood. We are sinking to the bottom of the sea, or not. Yep, we are very slowly sinking to the bottom of the sea. 1, 2. And are we still sinking to the bottom of the sea? No, we're not. Okay, just a little... That's weird. That's weird. Nope, we're still sinking to the bottom of the sea. Nope, we're not sinking to the bottom of the sea. That's confusing. Anyway, we have made a very stable vertical wall in the sea, I do have to say. But yeah, back to here. This is not the kind of combo you want to make an entire ship out of, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, I don't know. This is like both of... I am fond of saying, and I'm sure at least some people agree with me, is that alloy and heavy armor, notwithstanding the fact that I made an entire fleet out of mostly alloy and wood, alloy and heavy armor is the most effective when you know exactly how much of it to use. Neither of these things are really good when you spam them, because all that means is that the thing you're making tends to be expensive for what it can do. There's exceptions to that, looking at things like the Pyre and the Laniakea and stuff like that, which are mostly heavy armor. But bear in mind, Nitocraft are under volume constraint limits, and arguably for the same cost, if you make something out of mostly, say, wood and metal, you would get something much larger and much more bulky, and therefore more survivable, that could probably undercost those things. I say that, for me at least, that's theoretical, because that's a lot of time investment to build something like that, and right now I don't feel like it, which is why you're getting this video right now. You're welcome! Alright, so moving on from that horrible armor combination, let's go over to this one. Alloy metal. This is a good one. Oh, this is good. Probably not, again, not like this. Why the hell did I make these? This is how you can tell I'm slightly burned out on From the Depths, because ye gods, man, like, I just do, like, weird, ineffective stuff, like, because I'm tired of doing things properly. That's not good. But yeah, so same story as with the other things. You should probably have an outer skin of metal, but honestly, like, you are hard-pressed to go wrong with just having something with an outside skin of metal and air gap filler as metal. Not necessarily poles. I like poles because I'm a lazy boy, and I tested poles to exhaustion, and they're okay. They're not perfect, but they're okay. And then you have a mostly inner layer of alloy, and the result is something very wonderfully float. You'll notice this thing is, like, riding clear out of the water. This is a little bit like, the more expensive, the fancier version, the ritzy, bougie version of combining wood and metal, because metal is tough, affordable armor, alloy is light and floaty, and so what you end up with is something that is tough and light and floaty. And that's good. We like that. We like that a lot. You just gotta be careful that it doesn't get undercosted by things that are made out of mostly wood, but given that this thing will survive a lot of things that a wooden craft will not, like lasers, for instance, or explosions, or thump, or just a lot of things, honestly, this is a damn good combination. You probably are gonna see a lot of things like that. The Steel Striders in particular, they love to combine alloy and metal, because if you don't want to go nuts on the upwards facing propellers for a ship, this is probably one of the best ways to make a durable ship hull that is actually somewhat floaty still. The Steel Striders don't really go in for wooden ships, do they? That's kind of more of a Deepwater card thing. But also, yeah, the Onyx Watch, they love combining metal and what's the other thing? Metal and alloy. Let's go look at an Onyx Watch thing. I'm gonna spawn in. Let's spawn in the Warden just for giggles. So you'll see here. The Warden is not shooting at us. Oh, it doesn't have salvage activated. Let's change that. Let's see if our dude is going to survive very long. But anyway, if you go here, you will see that this is quite a regular combination, and you don't actually need that much alloy to keep a lot of metal afloat. So that's very convenient. This thing goes floaty-floaty, it has pitch and roll props, but it doesn't need up props, and is keeping a bunch of stuff afloat. Let's see here, how are you doing, sir? You're actually doing okay. My derpy deck armor is actually holding out. This is, by the way, why you actually want somewhat thick deck armor in From the Depths, because Otherwise, plunging cram shots will absolutely ruin your life. And yeah, you can tell that this armor scheme is not super great against explosives because, well, it's lacking armor stacking, and poles are not good for explosion proofing because they don't stack well. They're pretty good for thump and kinetic, though. Decent for thump and kinetic, at least. So there is that. Okay, then, so that is that lovely armor combination. Moving right along. And metal and heavy armor. This is like the stone and heavy armor, but even worse. However, this is the flying brick material. So, this thing is currently sinking to the bottom of the ocean. But yeah, like this is like if you spawn in any flying brick in the campaign, it'll be mostly metal and heavy armor because that just works well. That is the two most durable materials put together, and then you get something incredibly durable. Is this thing gonna take damage from the surf? Nah, nothing. Thank goodness for rubber. Rubber for the win. Always wear rubber for protection. This doesn't work well for boats, though, I do have to say. Like, you probably noticed, by the fact that this thing sank straight to the bottom of the ocean, that trying to build primarily with metal and heavy armor for a boat is a great way to make an accidental submarine instead. So if you don't have the supreme power of custom jets to make your thing fly, I would recommend not building a ship out of this particular material combination for the most part. Aforementioned metal and alloy, metal and wood, and a little heavy armor citadel is a much better idea. This is kinda stupid. And as aforementioned, actually, I have been saying that like you want to put the more durable item on the outside as a skin. That's specifically talking about metal, or if you're a crazy person, like alloy perhaps, if you're combining alloy and wood, like a crazy person. I don't know who would do that. That's incredibly silly, and they should be reported to the canoe authorities. But in the case of heavy armor, remember what I said earlier, heavy armor is too valuable to get shot at regularly. You don't actually want it damaged first. So, against most things, like, say, thump and explosives and stuff like that, you basically want a metal skin on the outside, because if that gets blown off, bearing in mind if you're playing the campaign, or if you're playing adventure mode, that's okay. That is a more affordable repair bill than, you know, repairing vast swathes of heavy armor that gets chipped away over a hard fight. So, there. So yeah, like, I'm gonna make this levitate so we can at least pretend that this is the flying brick that you should actually try and do. You should probably not make a flying brick canoe-shaped, you should probably make it brick-shaped. See all the flying bricks that exist in the campaign. This thing is not getting to the surface fast enough, so I'm going to delete it. Alright, and that was it, actually. Alright, so here's some... Right, so we were talking for the most part about armor combinations, like if you have to pick two materials and just run with them, which are the best, well, spoiler alert, wood and metal is the best. I would say, what else is here? Just a quick look-see. So, wood and stone, if you want to be super cheap. Wood and metal, absolute best. Wood and alloy, nah. Wood heavy armor, hell no. Stone and alloy, I think, is perhaps underrated. I'm going to play around with that a lot more, and I'll let you know how that goes. Stone and metal, Stone heavy armor, alloy heavy armor, nah, not unless you have too much money. Alloy metal, very, very good. That's a very common combination for very good reason. Metal heavy armor, only for flying bricks, like the brickiest of bricks. And now we get into the silly stuff, because I know some memesters in the comments are going to be talking about the silly things. They're going to be talking about glass, lead, and rubber. So let's talk about them, shall we? And yeah, and part of the problem with glass is that, well, it's hard to see. So I'm just going to make this a little darker so we can see what we're talking about. Glass, I don't think I really need to say this. It's not meant for armor. It is mainly meant for something to, you know, something that cameras can see through. And that's basically the whole idea of it. And that's it. That's basically it. Like, if you use this as armor, if you try and make a literal glass cannon, you're gonna have a bad idea. Like, good glass cannons are best made out of wood, because it is cheaper, and it floats. So yeah, glass is only like, really it's more an aesthetic block than anything else, honestly. Like, what's particularly funny, actually, random comment, Sean, one of the From Devs developers, I hear on the grapevine, I have been shown a screenshot or two, so don't quote me on this, is that he really frickin' hates glass. Like, he does not like it. He does not like it at all. he thinks it's completely and utterly useless, and I'm not gonna argue, he's one of the devs. And, like, I use it basically just for, I don't know, aesthetic purposes. Like, when you want to make a cockpit, glass makes it actually look like a cockpit, rather than any other kind of pit, or any other kind of genitalia. That was a stupid joke, and I apologize. Alright, moving right along, let's talk about lead. People have, jokingly, said to me that I should try making craft entirely out of lead, and, well, here we go, this is what it looks like. It's a great way to hit the bottom of the ocean very, very quickly. Oh boy. So, lead only has one job. It has literally one job, and it's very good in it, and that is be heavy. I have talked about this in other videos before. And basically, if you make an entire thing out of lead, the only thing it's going to be good at is being very heavy. It will not be good at literally anything else. So let's look at the stats for lead again. It's armor of 10, so it is between wood and stone. Health of 300, which is slightly more than stone, actually. It's the same as alloy. And the buoyancy is negative 158.7, which is ridiculous. Well, it's about as heavy as heavy armor, honestly. It has got a little bit of fire resistance, and that's it. So, no. Don't make stuff entirely out of lead. I mean, if you want to take on the challenge, like, be my guest. Let me know how that goes. It'll be super funny. Okay, and now let's talk about... rubber is actually one of my favorite materials, but making an entire thing out of rubber, probably not a good idea. Rubber is, like, you know, it's a skin. It is, well, I'm just gonna say it, it's like a condom. You want to cover the thing in a layer of rubber, but if the entire thing is made out of rubber... Wait a minute, that's basically a dildo, which is truly excellent, provided it is wielded correctly. So never mind. The analogy has broken down, and I'm embarrassed. Alright, so purely rubber thing, not a good idea, especially not with this. Like, this whole thing with the poles here is just me messing around with, like, using the armor swap, function. Like, you might as well just have, like, 8 meters of rubber if you're crazy enough to use this as actual armor. The good news is, this is about as EMP-proof as you can possibly get. So, it's also got, as I've said before in other videos, this is one of the most, it is in fact the most, sonar and radar resistant material. So the radar signature of this is basically nothing. So if we spawn in, what's a good example? Let's spawn in the wood metal hull. So if we go to our excellent detection lines, let's see, radar detection. Radar detection of this thing is at its most, let's see, it's about over 2,000. The radar detection of this thing is only about 500 or so, give or take. So it's about a quarter as strong. So, also bearing in mind that this is very floaty, the sonar detection for wood and metal is huge. So that's over, hovering at around 2,000 meters or so. For this thing, again, it is hovering just over 500 and dipping below it as it bobs back and forth. So yeah, that's just from the side, by the way. So yeah, like, rubber is stealthy, but you still wouldn't want to make an entire thing out of it, because that's kind of silly. You don't get armor stacking, and, like, let's look at the difference here. So we're gonna crank up the juice on this to about 10,000, bear in mind that this has a lot of metal poles in it, so kablooey. So that's 30 explosive damage, and, like, it gets through the outer 2 layers. Over here on the purely rubber thing, that's 38,000. And gets through both outer layers and through the layers of poles. You know what? There has not been enough blowing things up, so I'm gonna go all in on this. So let's go here. So let's go 30,000 to 35 meter radius and see what happens. This is gonna get blown in half probably. Kablooey. So about 80,000 explosive damage. It goes through, wow, look at that, it actually held a little bit. Through the outer 2 layers of wood, through a layer of poles, and that's as far as it goes. And the rubber thing over here. Can we see? Yep, there's the juicy innards. Yay! Alright, now I'm officially bored, so like, explode! Whee! And explode. Honestly, pretty similar results when an explosion happens like that, isn't it? So, I'm gonna finish off with the icicle shooting things again, because I like the icicle shooting things. It's a very good time. It is a very good time. So, I hope people enjoyed this kind of rambly video on, like, armor and From the Depths, which is one of the things that, like, wait, this is Snowman Gary. Should we spawn in Snowman Gary? Yes, let's spawn in Snowman Gary. And let's spawn in a crossbones, because why not? I like the crossbones. It's fun to shoot at. So, yeah. The long and short of it is wood and metal for when you want to be cheap, and metal and alloy when you want to be a little bit more expensive. And that's it. And use heavy armor for the Citadel, and you'll be all good. And that's just generally armor in a nutshell. And don't use poles like I've been showing you. Poles have their place, but not the way I've been doing it. So yeah, please enjoy Gary inflicting violence, because Gary is good at it. And thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Support me on Patreon or YouTube membership if you like. It really helps. And there's fun perks in it for you. Like, at the lowest tier, access to a Patreon exclusive Discord where you can hang out with me and other cool people, and we can talk about From the Depths stuff and other stuff as well. And at the highest tier, I'll even build, craft, or draw stuff for you. I can draw stuff, did you know? And, do check out my other channels and my Twitch. They are a welcome relief from doing From the Depthsy stuff. Very helpful. Very helpful for mental health purposes. Because if you do nothing but From the Depths, you go cuckoo crazy, as I'm sure you're aware if you play it regularly. And I hope you all have a wonderful day and happy armoring, and do let me know your armor thoughts. Let me know if you agree or disagree with the things I've been rambling about, and I deserve to be roasted for, like, some of those armor combinations in the layout specifically. I don't know. I've made this video mostly for giggles, and I hope you have giggled at least once. Farewell! Gary does what Gary does best, which is shoot things that try and shoot at Gary.